name was David Gibbs. They must have lived back in the early 1900s because he said, he started the story by saying, I remember the day that polio came to our home. He said, my mother was in the kitchen and said, Davy, call your dad, I don't feel well. And she collapsed in the kitchen floor. The ambulance came and took her away, and they told us she had polio. They put her in a sanatorium, put her in an iron lung. And he said, I didn't know it, but that would be the last time I'd see my mother for 2 years. And I remember the day she came home. She came strapped in a wheelchair. Head strapped back, arms strapped back, legs strapped in. She cannot feed herself, she cannot move, except she can talk. Brought her in, and Dad said, okay, Mom hasn't been with us to have family devotions now for a long time. We're going to have family devotions before we take her to her room. So they read the scriptures, and when they started to pray, she said, I have a prayer request. Pray that God would give me a ministry. Another year went by. It's tough. One day a preacher comes along. He comes in, he sits down, he reads the scriptures with them. He goes to pray, and she said, I have a prayer request. Pray that God would give me a ministry. He said, that preacher said, Mrs. Gibbs, you might as well understand this. God is through with you. You're not going to have a ministry anymore. He said, another period of time, I forget, the years rolled on. I mean, this is bad. And another couple came, and they said, listen, we have this little Sunday school work. It's not going very well. It's just a couple of kids, and they don't always come, and we're kind of tired. We're looking for someone to sort of take it over, to help with the work. She said, oh, we would love to help with that work. Davy said, Mom, you can't do that. He's just trying to roll that over to you, and nobody comes to that, Mom. That's just nothing. You don't get into that. They just want to get out of it. Mom, don't do that. She said, Davy, we have been praying. And this is the only thing that God has opened up. And I think we should do it. He said, every day that week, my sister and I rolled her in front of the mirror in front of her room, and she practiced her Sunday school lesson. And then Sunday came, and we went, and we waited, and we waited, and we waited, and nobody showed up. Davy said, I told you, Mom, nobody's going to come here. They're just trying to unload this thing. And she said, no. She said, there are children here. He said, well, where are the children? You and your sister. Now sit down right here, she said. We're going to have Sunday school. We got to hear that lesson, he said. We got to hear that lesson again. One we heard every week. And the weeks went by, and the weeks went by, and the weeks went by, and nobody came. He said, Mom, just leave it. It's done. Give up. She said, no, God's given us this ministry. We're not going to give up. She said, David, tomorrow I want you to take me down to the big bus company downtown. We need a bus to bus Sunday school kids in. If we could pick them up, I'm sure that we could have a Sunday school here. We need a bus. And I want you to take me down there so that I can ask them to give us a bus. So the next day, got her in the car, got down to this huge big bus station down there. It took a lot of time and a lot of effort. Finally, they got her into the lobby. Go up to the receptionist, and she says, may I help you? And this lady, who can't move anything, says, yes, ma'am, we have come here today to ask you to give us a bus for our Sunday school. So the vice president of the bus company came down, and she said, oh yeah, she said, I've come here today to ask you to give us a bus. We need a bus for our Sunday school class. We want to bus boys and girls in so that we can tell them about the Lord Jesus. And he said, lady, that's a noble ambition, but he said, we don't give buses away here. Davy said, I told you, Mom, they don't give buses away here. Let's go. She said, no, wait a minute. She said, do you own the buses? Well, technically, I guess I don't. They're not really my buses. She said, well, that explains why you can't give me a bus. She said, you don't own those buses. She said, could I talk to the person that owns those buses? He said, lady, I don't know what to say about this. And so anyhow, in a few minutes, the president of the company came down. Before she said anything, he said, lady, I saw you get out of the car, and I saw the struggle that you went through. I admire you. Is there something that I could do to help you? And she said, well, matter of fact it is. Said, I need a bus for my Sunday school so we can tell them about the Lord Jesus. He said, well, lady, we don't give buses away here. This is not what we do. He said, I admire your goal and your work and all, but he said, I can't give buses. These buses are very expensive. She said, could I just say one thing before I leave? She said, God is not going to be happy with you when He hears that you wouldn't give me a bus so that boys and girls could come and hear about the Lord Jesus. He's not going to be happy about that. He said, lady, if I gave you a bus, who would drive it? You? She said, you know, I never thought about that. She said, I'm going to need a driver too, she said. He said, you're absolutely incredible. He said, I can't believe this. He said, I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you one bus, and I'm going to give you one driver for one Sunday. She said, we've got a little bit of a problem. He said, what now? She said, really, when I prayed about this, there are 2 areas in the city. God told me to ask for 2, but I didn't have the nerve, she said, to ask for 2. She said, I'm going to need 2 buses and 2 drivers. He said, lady, I'm going to give you 2 buses and 2 drivers for one Sunday. For one Sunday. And as Davy gave his mother's testimony, he said, and that's the way it happened. 2 buses and 2 drivers for one Sunday. Because the next Sunday we had 3 buses and 3 drivers. And in the next 20 years we had 30 buses and 30 drivers, and over 5,000 kids came to that Sunday school to hear about the Lord Jesus. The man that owned the bus company became a Christian. He sent his children brought the gospel home, he got saved. Just about every one of the bus drivers got saved. Davy said, in the snow sometimes I'd push my mom out, and the bus drivers had brought the kids, and they're waiting out in the parking lot, and she'd knock on the door, and they'd open that door, and she'd say to him, today you're going to meet the Lord Jesus. It's time you got your life straightened up. A lady who couldn't feed herself, strapped in a chair, who waited years and years and years and years and would not take no for an answer. Be strong. Do the work. I'm with you. I promise. Come on, folks. Gotta make a difference. What are you going to do?